It's these invisible forces that, if you control them, success will then follow. Say my own journey going from a D student to an A student, we went from $0 to a portfolio of $10 million plus in 7 years. It's really interesting because we don't stop and think about these things sometimes. It's these intangible thoughts that we have that actually changes a lot in terms of our lives. So I'm just wanting to take your mindset into the next level. So the first part, which is the decaying memory versus exponential time effects. This is really important because a lot of times we might be struggling in terms of our academic studies. We're trying different study methods. We're trying to do many different things at once. And often you don't see the effects. And sometimes you achieve success and you don't understand why you achieve success. You end up trialing 10 different things, 20 different things, and they all seem to not work out well. It's because we're not understanding this invisible force in play, which is two things working against you. First, as human beings, we've got a really poor memory. If you try and go and learn something that doesn't really matter to you, maybe for exams, after the exams, right the day after or 2 days after, you forget most of the things. It's because we have these exponentially decaying memories that goes into play. First day you have a lot and then it just basically decays onwards. And then the second part we have is the compounding time effect that again works against you. So for example, you might be trialing a new study technique, but the problem is if you don't stick to it long enough, you don't build the skill. For example, we talk about the 5, 10, 15 rule, we talk about these 3D learning teaching methods, and you haven't given it enough time for you to build the skill so it becomes a compounded effect for you. So with these two things playing together, I really want you to just be very aware of the things that you are doing right now. Have you actually given enough time for it to work, for you to work on that skill, that study method, or that particular thing you want to achieve, either extracurricular wise in your sport or other things? Have you given it enough time for you to be like, okay, this doesn't work? But this has an overarching principle is, for example, if you want to achieve really well in tennis, there was some random mate of yours that isn't doing well, you listen to them and you try it for a month and it doesn't work. It probably doesn't work. If it is Roger Federer that comes and tells you that, hey, this is a problem, someone that has achieved something, I would really think 10 times, 20 times, 30 times why he's telling you that, because it comes from a place of experience and he's probably seen much more than you have. Do you have these particular invisible forces that are in play? For example, the shot that you're having, you're still not getting it right because you're not getting enough time. It might not be 26 days, it might be 26 months until you actually get that right. So I think just having a think of that will dramatically change things of how you think about academic study. So we talked about, say, my own journey going from a D student to an A student. Again, it's the exponential time effect that works for me because I kept on trying to improve my own study efficiency. I kept on trying to improve on working out what is all the inefficiency points. It's pretty much summarized it for you. There's only 3 things. It's your time inefficiency. Are you actually sitting down having just bums on seats time and really not doing much else? Are you actually spending sufficient time or efficient time when you sit down and study? If you are, and you're still getting poor grades, is it because that your study methods are really poor? You might be sitting down making 2 hours of notes that it's not good for you, and that no information is going in, but you're still doing that out of habit. Are you really going in and fixing all these inefficiencies? And if this continues to exponentially compound over time, you'll become unstoppable. So for example, for us, me and my partner, we've been investing in property for quite some time now. We went from $0 to a portfolio of $10 million plus in 7 years. That, again, is the problem with decaying memory and exponential time effects. We're not particularly smart. I scored bottom third of some IQ test, and you sitting here, you might be smarter than me. So I feel like we were lucky because we followed a mentor. We paid $40,000 for 3 days for them to tell us what we need to do. And that's the exact formula that we did. And we had to sit out for 7 years for it to continue to compound and see the effects in place. So I think it's just a few examples to drive that in and really think about whether or not you're in the right trajectory at the moment. And if it's not working, are you taking some people's advice that they may not have achieved what you want to achieve? I would be really careful of that. Or if you're taking from some people that have achieved what you achieved, have you given it enough time and are you actually drilling down to the skill that you want to build? So that's the invisible force number 1 that would lead you on to your success. Number 2 is an interesting one. It's called the Rev Queen effect. So this one here is quite interesting. I don't know if you guys all know about Alice in Wonderland. So it's from the book version of that. It's a lot of words, it's a lot of everything. So let me just break it down for you. So essentially there's this theme where Alice is brought by the Queen to run. Now she's in a different world, right? And she was running pretty much as fast as she could and realizes that she's staying at the same place. So what does this allude to? Give me an example again, like to drive this home. So for example, with your academic studies right now, if you're in here, you might be also be watching YouTube, looking at other people talking about study techniques, and you probably have seen Ali Abdaal with his study techniques videos and like, hey, active recall, spaced repetition is everything. And when you see like 10 million views on that video, that means that 10 million other people already know about this. So if you were to use the same techniques, you are really just keeping the same as the other people who have consumed this content. So, in other words, you need to be developing even better ways of studying. For example, the things that we highlighted in here, the time efficiency, the study efficiency, exam efficiency, and continue drilling into those so you continue to stay ahead of the game. So I guess that's kind of the other invisible force in play, where people don't understand why they're working harder, but they're still achieving the same. It's because studying, like any other competitive sport, is relative to other people that you're with. So if you have the competitive edge compared to other people, then you will come out the better one at the end of this. Does that kind of make sense? So I think this is kind of self-reflection time, as in like, hey, is everyone else in my class already know about the stuff that I know about? Because if it is, that's probably the thing that's keeping you from achieving either top in your class or whatever extracurricular things that you're trying to do. That's kind of the really powerful but invisible force that's at play. Like, no one really talks about this stuff. Like, Red Queen effect pretty much applies to a lot of things. Like, when you look at evolution, we know that Darwin's theory is like the most adaptable survives, right? So back in caveman age, if you're the biggest, you're the most muscles, you can kill things and beat other tribes up, like, you win. But now imagine you continue developing those muscles right now. It will just get you to jail, right? It doesn't do anything for you. So right now, most of the rich people, if you want to be financially successful, they use the entities from the neck up to generate their wealth. This Red Queen effect applies to everything from evolution to academic studies to even businesses. Previously, we had restaurants. You had to go there. Then they started doing takeouts. Then takeouts wasn't convenient enough. Then you have Uber Eats. Now then there's like multiple forms of Uber Eats. So things continue to evolve. That's why there's a saying of evolve or die. Like, that's kind of the whole underlying effect that people aren't aware of. So I hope this kind of enlightens you that there's this underlying treadmill that we're all running, whether or not you like it or not. If you're living in this society, I want you to have a think about, if you really want to get ahead of the pack, how can you do this smartly and not do what everyone else is doing? Does that kind of make sense? I want to just that sink in a little bit. So have a think about this Red Queen effect. Number 3, again, it gets increasingly more important towards the end. Number 3 is what I call the habit identity loop. I feel like this is more and more overarching towards all the other principles. So what I call habit identity loop is this. You start off over here. If you have read the book Atomic Habits, this is where it's from. When we compound 1% better, we get 1% better each day, we end up 37 times better. If we become stagnant or 1% worse each day, we only remain 3% left of what we have before. So that's the compounding effect. But where does this come from? It comes from your daily habits that compounds. Day after day, day after day. The thing that we talked about previously. What are you doing each day when you wake up? What are you thinking? What are your actions entailing? All of these comes from your mindset, your mental heuristics. Are you taking full responsibility or are you blaming on other people? That splits the two. Like, either go up or go down. So what kind of methods are you doing? Are you having sustainable habits that are ongoing? Are you using methods that are not hurting your mental health but continue to get you to compound up? And are you continue taking action? Because if you have the mindset and the methods, but you're not taking action, nothing happens. You're still staying the same. So this all compounds to become your habits, either mentally or physically, things that you do. And all of this then feeds into one of the ultimate things that drives who you are. There's an invisible trajectory that will go forward. If your identity and your values, your why, your desire is not set well, it is not conducive towards what you want to achieve. And a lot of people struggle. A lot of people become frustrated in life. They develop anxiety. They develop depression because they don't understand and control this invisible force well. So in the book Atomic Habits, it talks about 2 different types of habits. One is outcome-based. For example, you are overweight at the moment. You want to lose weight. So most people do this. 80% of people do this. They'll say, okay, I'm overweight. I'm going to set a goal. I'm going to lose 10 kgs by the end of the year. This is a problem because this is an outcome-based habit. It is externally driven. So when I lose 10 kgs, I'm going to look great and that person's going to compliment me. So everything is external, as you can see. Unless you can shift this to become an identity-based habit, it's coming from the inside out. It is aligning to your values, your why, your own desires. I must do this because I need to provide for my family. My mom is sick on the bed, and if I am not healthy, and if I am lying in the hospital every 3 months, this is going to be bad. Do you see how this is a completely different approach? Like, there is the goal that you set, very superficial, and then there's something that's really deep to you, connect to you, like your pride is tied into it. That comes internally. So that's kind of the difference that I wish to make and get you starting to think about this identity habit loop, because they feed into each other. The thoughts and habits and actions that you're taking continue to vote for the identity that you want to keep reinforcing. And that identity then continues to generate the thoughts, actions, and habits that you're doing. And this loop continues on and on and on. So until you are sick enough of the current situation that you're in, be it your study habits, be it your financial position, be it your relationship or the people that you're attracting in terms of your relationships, unless you shift your identity, the new habits are unlikely to form. And the dilemma comes now. It's really hard to establish new habits when you have a fixed ingrained old identity. And then it comes back to, it's really hard to form new habits because you have this identity, and then this identity feeds onto the same habits. So the only practical way around this is really to set minimum goals each day. For example, you never exercise in your life. I kid you not, anyone can do one push-up each day. Like, if you have to do it on your knees, that's fine. If you have to do it against the wall, that's fine. But you have to set a goal that's so small each day that you continue to wake up and do it. Even if you're lying at bed like you had an exhausting day, you can still get up and do that small goal each day. It's not that tiny push-up against the wall that matters. It's the compounding each day that eventually change your identity, that you vote for a new identity, that you tell yourself, hey, I'm going to be a new person. I'm going to adopt a different identity. And then that will compound. One wall push-up will become one normal push-up. Then it will become 5 push-ups. Then it will become 10 push-ups. Then it will become 50 push-ups. Then you're like, I'm a healthy person. I'm not going to choose to eat that KFC, not going to eat that McDonald's. And then that continues to compound. So that momentum, this invisible force, is super important. And as I say, this final one overrides it all, which is a community, which is everyone sitting here at the moment, everyone inside our community at the moment. You deciding to turn up and learning is you deciding that you want to be part of this community, this high achieving community. We want to achieve more in life together. And this overrides everything, because once you have a good community together, be it online like this, even better, if you're able to shape your environment around you to have high achievers surrounding you, it will then shape your habit identity loop. Your identity will be different. For example, when I was a burnt out A student in pharmacy school, my identity was, I'm just going to work as hard as I can. I'm just going to be like a bull and just smash everywhere. And that was my identity. And that then wasn't conducive to my mental health, because it became a problem. Like, I just used really inefficient study methods, but I did 16-hour days. So that was my identity I tied into, like that was my pride. But then when I was in medical school, I had the best time of my life, because I surrounded myself in terms of community with people that had identity of, okay, I'm going to be a high achiever amongst these really smart people. I'm going to still get that top 10%, but I'm also going to pride myself to have a good study-life balance. And that changed everything, because I wanted to adopt that identity too. It kept on making me think, how can I become more efficient so that I can study less and still get that grades as if the same person that's studying 16 hours in the library, but I only need to do 4 hours or 3 hours each day. When you ask the right questions, the right identity forms, within the habit then forms, and you will effortlessly keep up with the Red Queen effect. You will develop more efficient ways, and you will continue using exponential time effects to your own benefit. Hopefully that was helpful.